and there is none like him. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can't lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can't lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can't lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can't lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win. Come on. You're our champion. With you we can't lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, come on, Baruch him. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. We do give thanks to Abba Yahuwah for all that he's doing, all that he's done, and all that he's yet going to do. Please be patient with us, for this is our first time doing it in this manner, so we will get that what we can to you. At this time, we're going to have the reading of the commandments by Apostle Brown. As he comes, let us put our hands together and give Abba Yahuwah praise.
Coming from the set-apart scriptures. Aleph, I am Yahuwah, your power, which brought you out of the land of Mizraim, from the bed of slavery. Bet, you shall have no other power before me. You shall not make you any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in Shemayim above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the man beneath the earth. Excuse me. You shall not bow down yourself unto them, nor serve them, for I, Yahuwah, your power, am a jealous power, visiting the iniquity of the hour upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Gemel, you shall not take the name of Yahuwah your power and falsify it, for Yahuwah will not hold him guiltless that takes his name and empties it. Dalet, guard the Sabbath day to set it apart, as Yahuwah your power has commanded you. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahuwah your power. In it you shall not do any work, you nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your ox, nor your ass, nor any of your cattle, nor your foreigner that is within your gates, that your manservant and your maidservant may rest as well as you. And remember that you were a servant in the land of Mizraim, and that Yahuwah your power brought you out of there through a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm. Therefore Yahuwah your power commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Hey, Honor your father and your mother as Yahuwah your power has commanded you, that your days may be prolonged and that it may go well with you in the land which Yahuwah your power is about to give you. While you shall not murder. Zain, neither shall you commit adultery. Ket, neither shall you steal. Tet, neither shall you bear false witness against your neighbor. Yud, neither shall you desire your neighbor's wife, neither shall you covet your neighbor's bed, his field, or his manservant, or his maidservant, his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. These words Yahuwah spoke unto all your assembly in the mount, out of the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of the thick darkness, with a great voice. And he added no more. And he wrote them in 2 tables of stone, and delivered them unto me. And it is so.
And it is so. Now we're going to do the Baruch of the Torah. Repeat with me, Baruch Yahuwah.
Baruch Yahuwah.
The Baruch one.
The Baruch one.
Baruch is Yahuwah.
Baruch is Yahuwah.
The Baruch one.
The Baruch one.
For all eternity.
For all eternity.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Our supreme one.
Our supreme.
King of the universe.
King of the universe.
Who selected us.
Who selected us.
From all the peoples.
From all the peoples.
And gave us his Torah.
And gave us his Torah.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Giver of the Torah.
Giver of the Torah.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah. Our supreme one.
Our supreme one.
King of the universe.
King of the universe.
Who gave us the Torah of truth.
Who gave us the Torah of truth.
And implanted eternal life within us.
And implanted eternal life within us.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Giver of the Torah.
Giver of the Torah.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Now we're going to read. We're going to go into the book of Yahusha, the son of Nun, as we prepare to get there. To read it. And we're going to start with verse 7. We're going to read verse 7, and then we're going to confess verse 8. Verse 7 says, once again, and we're in the book of Yahusha, the son of Nun, chapter 1, verses 7 and 8. We're going to read verse 7, and then we're going to confess verse 8. Verse 7 says, only be you strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to all the Torah which Moshe, my servant, commanded you. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. All right, verse 8, let us repeat this together as I have tailored it to fit our time of confession. Repeat with me, I will not let this scroll of the Torah.
I will not let this scroll of the Torah
depart out of my mouth.
Depart out of my mouth.
But I shall meditate on it.
But I shall meditate on it
day and night.
day and night.
That I may observe to do.
That I may observe to do
According to all that is written in it.
according to all that is written in it.
For then I shall make my way prosperous.
For then I shall make my way prosperous.
And act wisely.
And act wisely.
And act wisely.
And act wisely.
Now look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, and you shall act wisely, and you shall act wisely. Look at your other neighbor and tell your other neighbor, and you shall act wisely, and you shall act wisely. Now take your hand and place it over your heart and say, Abba Yahuwah,
Abba Yahuwah,
I shall act wisely.
I shall act wisely.
Come on, I shall act wisely.
I shall act wisely.
I endeavor to act wisely.
to act wisely.
Come on, I endeavor
I endeavor
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. We endeavor every day of our lives to act wisely, because it is a charge that we have to do so as the children of power. And it is so.
And it is so.
Now we're going to turn our attention to the book of Devarim, chapter 6, verses 1 through 14. And it is so.
And it is so.
I believe it is a very important part and very significant part of our daily regimen, is to help us to develop and help to govern and guide our lives. Excuse me, once again, as we are walking in truth, the only truth that there is for us, and that is the truth of Abba Yahuwah through the instructions of his Torah for our lives. It's important that we hold fast to it, and it is so.
And it is so.
Chapter 6, verses 1 through 14, once again. And it reads, these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which Yahuwah your power commanded to teach you, that you might do them in the land where you are going, to enter and possess it, that you might fear Yahuwah your power, to keep all his statutes and his commandments which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the days of your life, and that your days may be prolonged. Hear therefore, O Yisrael, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as Yahuwah, power of your Abbas, has promised you in the land that flows with milk and honey. Verse 4. Hear, O Yisrael, Yahuwah, our Supreme One, is Akkad. Shemat Yisrael, Yahuwah is our Savior. Yahuwah is Akkad. And you shall love Yahuwah, your Supreme One, with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart, and you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your bed, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them upon the posts of your bed and on your gates. Excuse me. And it shall be when Yahuwah your power shall have brought you into the land which he swore unto your Abbas, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give you great and goodly cities which you did not build, and houses full of all good things which you filled not, and wells dug which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant. When you shall have eaten and be full, then beware lest you forget Yahuwah, which brought you forth out of the land of Mitzrayim, from the bed of slavery. You shall fear Yahuwah your power, and serve him, and shall swear by his name. Verse 14, you shall not go after other power of the people which are round about you. And we're going to I'm going to extend the reading as I always do. Verse 15 says, for Yahuwah your power is a jealous power among you, lest the anger of Yahuwah your power be kindled against you, and he destroy you from off the face of the earth. You shall not tempt Yahuwah your power as you tempted him in Massah. You shall diligently keep the commandments of Yahuwah your power, and his testimonies and his statutes which he has commanded you. And you shall do that which is right and good in the sight of Yahuwah, that it may be well with you, and that you may go in and possess the good land which Yahuwah swore unto your Abbas. And it is so. And it is so. And it is so. Now we're going to go to the book of Devarim, chapter 11, and we're going to look at verses 13 through 21. And it is so. And it is so. Once again, it's important that we understand. I know there are many other verses in the writings. I tend to regard these and hold these dear to my heart, because they are what I would consider the pinnacle for our lives, to help us to develop and to grow as the children of power. Because we have to understand who we are, and by understanding who we are, then we understand what it takes to develop and grow. We understand then what it takes and what is necessary for us to be able to grow and to develop as the children of power. And so we're going to read chapter 11, verses 13 through 21 from the book of Devarim, which is also the book of Deuteronomy. And it is so. And it shall come to pass, if you listen carefully to my commandments, which I command you this day, to love Yahuwah your power, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, that I will give you the rain of your land in his due season, the first rain and the latter rain, that you may gather in your corn and your wine and your oil. And I will send grass in your fields for your cattle, that you may eat and be full. Take heed to yourselves, that your heart be not deceived, and you turn aside and serve other power and worship them. And then Yahuwah's wrath be ignited against you. And he shut up Shemayim, that there be no rain, and that the land yield not her fruit, unless you perish quickly from off the good land which Yahuwah gives you. Therefore shall you lay up these my words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be as frontlets between your eyes. To fall. Once again, to bind to the mind. It is important that we understand Yahuwah was not talking about placing a little black box in the center of your head. He was talking about binding his Torah to your mind. Just like we meditate, and just like we study, and just like when we study, how we go through a time or a process of studying so that we can remember. It's important that we do that. And it is so. And it is so. All right. Verse 19, and you shall teach them your children, speaking of them when you sit in your bed, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall write them upon the doorposts of your bed and upon your gates. Verse 21, that your days may be multiplied in the days of your children in the land which Yahuwah swore unto your Abbas, to give them as the days of Shemayim upon the earth. For if you shall carefully keep all these commandments which I command you, to do them, to love Yahuwah your power, to walk in all his halakha, and to cling unto him. It's important that we understand that we cling to him. For in clinging to him, it shows our dedication, and it shows that we are truly serious about our walk and this way of life that he has given unto us, his children, the children of power. Once again, it's so important that we understand these things, and it is so. And it is so. Come on, put your hands together. As we come to this portion of our time, where we have our time of confession, if you just give me just a moment as I get to that part. I love this. Why? Because once again, I am a stickler and a firm believer that repetition is important for our development and our growth. And as we continue to develop and as we continue to grow, it helps us to understand what works with our development, what works with our growth, just like things we eat. And especially if you are on, just say, on a diet, if you are taking things that you truly desire to grow, there are certain things that you would take, and you're taking them. Well, you would take maybe a journal, and you would basically log it in to see how well it's doing, basically see, okay, is this really working for me? Am I wasting my time with this? And so this is what I like when it comes down to these things that we have, the confessions, the scriptures, or the writings that help us to develop as his people, and so that we can move forward and not lose our momentum as we continue to grow. So once again, if you give me just a few seconds here, just to find it, so that we can make sure that we bind it to our minds, and so that we don't forget it, as repetition is truly important to us as a people. And as a people that's growing and developing, we know that any thing that you do consistently, we don't want it to become a habit, but we want it to become a way of life. And so it's important that we understand that. Also, while I'm looking at this, I want to also say our internet is a little slow and it's not as strong. So if we cut out, please don't quit us, stick with us. It's just the internet. It's just a little weaker where we are on tonight. So we will pop right back in, but just be patient with us, please. And it is so.
And it is so.
All right. Well, I'm almost there. Once again, it's important we understand these things. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Ooh. All right. All right. As we are gathered with our last confession, confess with me. May the utterance of my mouth, and the deliberation of my heart, be desirable before you, O Yahuwah, my rock, and my redeemer. May the utterance of my mouth, and the deliberation of my heart, be desirable before you, O Yahuwah, my rock, and my redeemer. We have just confessed to Tehillim 19 and 15, and it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. All right, on this great night, Yom Shalishi, we want to begin in our studies, as we've been studying. Those of you that have been walking with us consistently, once again, I do want to say, please, if we cut out, it is because our internet is just a little weaker where we are, but we will still be here. Stick with us. Don't quit us. As we are back into our study on tonight with looking at the timeline of Yahusha, which is very important unto us, especially for many of people that may not believe in Yahusha, and that they believe that there is no relevance to the Brit Hadasha, not the New Testament, but the Brit Hadasha. You must understand it's not the New Testament, but it is the Brit Hadasha. It is the renewed covenant for us, because there was the first covenant that we find written in the Torah and through the prophets. And so it's important that we establish that it's not the New Testament, but the Brit Hadasha. Now, once again, we want to look at the life of Yahusha, and we are looking at him in the book of Yehukanan. chapter 4, verses 1 through 42. And we're going to get there, and we're going to look at the path that he took. We're going to kind of just go through a little bit of it. I'm going to do some reading, some literature, reading of the literature, and then we're going to get into the scriptures or the writings so that we can see the path that he had taken. Once again, it is important that we see these things in the writings, and it is so. And it is so. All right, let me get there. Once again, let us go to the book of Yahusha, chapter 4, and I'm going to read some things while you are getting there. And it is so.
And it is so.
All right. Once again. All right, which is also the book of John, chapter 4. We're going to start at... we're going to start at verse... we're going to go through... We're going to start at... Let's start at... Hold on. Thing is acting a little slow too. All right, go ahead. Let's read. Go ahead, read that for me.
Which verse?
Starting at verse 1. Hold on. 1537. Yes, just give me a second. I want to make sure. Okay, chapter 4, starting at verse. Let's start at, we can start at verse 1. Chapter 4, verse 1. We're going to read 5 verses. Read for me. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yahusha, chapter 4, verse 1. So when the master knew that the Pharisees had heard that Yahusha made and immersed more taught ones than Yahusha, although Yahusha himself did not immerse, but his taught ones, he left Yehuda and went away again to Galilee. And he had to pass through Shemaron. So he came to a city of Shemaron called Shechem, near the piece of land Yaakov gave to his son Joseph. And it is so.
And it is so. All right. Now, verse 4 says, and he had to go through Shemaron, which is Samaria. So there was a reason he went through there. This just was not haphazard, but this was a part of... sorry, y'all. Keeps turning up. A reason why he had to go through there, because they were part of his ministry. Now, once again, let's look at the footnote here. I love reading the footnotes. Yahusha once again headed to the north, which is a special area where the 10 tribes were scattered. He goes to Galilee because this is in the north. This area is by way referred to by the rabbi, meaning the area of adoration where Yahusha should be adorned, not rejected. And it says, look, in any country today, and the northern areas are usually the hardest areas where the most believers are and false religions are active. It is. I was just looking on today, not to digress, on Instagram, and I was looking up. There was a post put up, and there was this idol that was created and put. I'm not sure if it was in New York or not, but I know there was this idol, and it was made out of wood, and it was like top part a calf, and it looked like a female and had on like a green skirt and like a pearl belt, and this is what they had on. And so it was amazing that this idol was put up there, and it was put up under a tree, and it had like cabbage heads all around it. And so you have to understand that there is a lot of idolatry and a lot of idolatrous activity all over, but you do see a lot of it up north. You do see it in the northern areas. So that's one thing we need to look at, not etching it in stone, but it's just something that I believe people should know, and it's just something that I believe that we ought to be conscious of. And it is so. it says, check the U.S. Gay bishops are ordained in the North. The towers fell in the Northeast, and New York is known as a very liberal atheist state. Pakistan has the Northwest frontier. That is a hard area full of Taliban activity. The point of reference we make is north of Yasrael. North of Yasrael has a great number or a large number of unbelievers today when you look at the world map. So once again, it's important that we understand these are basic statistics that were given. And so it's not, I don't believe it's any harm in looking at it and doing research on it. I would not once again take it and doctrinalize it, but I would say it is an area and a place that we should look at, especially when you get to talking about idolatrous activities. And like I say, and they were bold and blatant. And I told one of the Ibram brothers, I said, just like gang members tag places, this is their marker. And what they are saying is that they are in that place and they're there to stay, and they are not going to leave. So it's important that we pray and that we continue to keep our guard up and that we continue to be watchful, because there are things that are taking place and things that are happening right up under our noses. So once again, that was important. So he was heading that way. All right. In verse 5, and it says, then he came to a city of Shamaron or Samaria, which is called Shechem, near the parcel of ground that Yaakov gave to his son Joseph. Now let's look at what the footnote says. I like once again to read them. The city of Shechem in Ibram means shoulder. In Eastern culture, the terminology, the weight of the dead or the weight of the family is carried on the shoulders. So Yahusha came here to do exactly that. He was to carry the sin upon his shoulders for the scattered tribes, the house of Yasrael. That's why it is important that we understand that he didn't come for everybody. I know that a lot of time it's hard for people to digest that. Why? Because we've been so inundated with Roman Catholicism, where Roman Catholicism has taught us that it is about universalism. Well, that is not so. So when you read in the writings in Matthew 15:24, he says that I've come not but for the prostituting sheep of Yasrael. Now we got to understand, if he's come just for the prostituting sheep of Yasrael, that means that is who he has geared or structured his ministry towards. And that is the prostituting sheep of Yasrael. Once again, you have to understand, we got the ministry or the makeup of universalism from Roman Catholicism. Once again, I can understand at times that's a hard pill to swallow, but if you're going to walk in the truth, then you better be ready to swallow that pill. And it is so.
And it is so.
All right. Then he came to a city of Shamaron, which is called, once again, Shechem, near to the parcel of the ground that Yaakov gave to his son Joseph. Now Yaakov's well was there. Yahusha, therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. Now, once again, let's look at what the 6th hour is. Now, according to the Julian calendar, which everybody basically follows, and that's why you had so many people celebrating the new year. We don't celebrate that because that's not the new year. That is, once again, under paganism. Our new beginning starts in the month of Abib, which is the springtime. Abib is a time. It's the month of Sivian. Nisan. And so, it is that time that we, see the new growth. It's the time that we see spring. And so, you do not begin the new beginning in the winter. Everything dies in winter. And so it's important that we understand that. Then you have to understand, I think September, Sept means 7. And then Oct means 8. And then when you get to October, 8. And then November, I believe it is 9. And then December, which is 10. So even when you count it accordingly, it tells you that January is not the first month. So once again, that goes into something totally different. But once again, it's important that we understand why everybody was celebrating what they considered the new year is not the new year. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. All right. Now, once again, the Julian calendar, which was in force at this time, counted time from sunset to sunset, not from midnight. This time is not Julian, but Ibram, which were 4 segments. This is around 12 noon. So it was around 12 noon that he had gone to the well to meet up with the Samaritan lady. Now you have to understand everything that Yahusha does, he does it on purpose and on point. He never does anything haphazardly. He never does anything on or by accident. No, he doesn't. Everything is on point and it's a purpose and it's purpose driven. And so it's important that we understand that. Now, once again, let's look at what he says in verse 7. There came a woman of Shamaron to draw mayim, to draw water. All right. Once again, let's look at that footnote. Now, it's interesting that he meets a woman and not a man. The assembly or congregation is described as a feminine entity. The woman here represents one of the 2 brides of Yahusha, and it is also the epitome of the northern tribes for which he said he had come. For the prostituting sheep of the house of Yisrael, 15 and 24 of Manti Yahu. In other words, the northern tribes had become mixed and were living a mixed culture of Gentile, non-Hebraic origin. They had devised their own ways of worship and places of worship, almost like today's churches, with each one having its own set of hymns and rules and regulations of prayer and thinking that their way to worship is superior to others. Sounds very familiar, doesn't it?
Yes.
They especially feel superior to the ways of the Ibram. Because of the inbuilt centuries of hatred of the Ibram, many Christians are anti-Semitic without even knowing it, and many will not even admit it. Now, once again, that's some. It's important that we understand even the remarks that they make, the things they say. It's important that we understand. And once again, you have to understand, I don't believe in bashing anybody, but I do believe in speaking truth. Right. I do believe in letting you know when it is truth and when it is error. I also believe in letting you know when there is a discrepancy, when there is something that you need to do even a further or in-depth study of it. Why? Because it's important that we know you cannot grow and develop from bad information. Right. Umar Johnson put it in this manner. He said the mother of all violence is miseducation, and the father of all violence is economical castration. So it's important that we understand these important things that we constantly hear. Once again, you cannot develop and you cannot grow if you have the wrong type of information. So it's important that we know what information we're getting. And so once again, you see these things and you see the clashing because you hear a lot of people say, well, the law has been done away with. What you have to understand, it's not the law. It is his instructions. It's his doctrine. It's his teaching to us or his people, his children. Just like if you have children and you know how you raise your children, you know your instructions are specifically for your children. You raise them that way. And even though some may go astray when they get older, they know the teaching. And so you have to understand years and generations of us losing our identity and losing the information that would have helped us and kept us walking in truth was lost because of our ancestors and forefathers' disobedience. Right. So once again, it's important that we understand what it's going to take for us to truly develop and become the children of power that Abba Yahuwah desires for us to be. Once again, it is very important that you use the right material to develop and grow by. You can't grow using stuff, just like you can't grow eating bad food. Now, once again, let me make sure people understand that. We have a way that we're supposed to eat. I'm not against meat unless it is unkosher. Mm-hmm. If it is pig and has anything in it remotely, we don't eat pigs, we don't eat rabbits, we don't eat any of those things. According to Vayikra chapter 11, we have a platform that shows us the type of kosher diet we're supposed to have. When you get to talking about how to eat, that's when you're going to lose a lot of folk, because a lot of people can't get rid of that swine. But let me tell you something, one way or the other, you're going to get rid of that swine, because that swine is not good for you. It's not. So once again, it is not hard, but these are instructions that were given unto us as his people, as his children. So once again, as we continue to look, and so when you see Christianity and you see the churches, you see that there are a lot of things that they basically diametrically oppose when it comes to living by the truth of Abba Yahuwah. They say there is no law. They say that's been done away with. Yahusha never came to do away with the law. He never came to do away with his instructions. But what Yahusha came to do, feel it, so that we could do the very same thing. So it's important that we walk strong and that we be strong. What's the saying? Strong, strong, that we be strong, strong in it, and know without a shadow of a doubt that these are the instructions that he's given unto us, his people. And it is so. All right. Now, once again, because we want to make sure that we're doing everything that he's given us to do. All right. Let us start at verse 6. We read to 5. Let's do 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Let's do to 11.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Luke chapter 4, verse 6, from the NIV.
Okay.
Yaakov's well was there, and Yahusha, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about the 6th hour.
Mm-hmm.
When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Yahusha said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "You are a Yehudim, and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? For Yehudim do not associate with Samaritans." Yahusha answered her, "If you knew the gift of power, and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." "Sir," the woman said, "you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water?" And it is so.
And it is so. Now, once again, we know the feuding. The feuding began between their ancestors. Between when the time after, actually before the death of Sahulaman. We saw where the discrepancy came in and where the bickering and the fussing came in, because when Sahulaman's son Jeroboam began to take over, basically it was taken from him, and he was only given one tribe, and it was Jeroboam that was going to take the other 10. Now, once again, we have to understand when Yahuwah told him, he said unto Sahulaman, to the prophet told Jeroboam, basically that he would not take the whole, all of the tribes and give them to him, that there would still be a light in Yisrael or Jerusalem for the lineage of Dawood through Sahulaman. So once again, we see where this comes about, because Jeroboam was very obnoxious, my personal opinion. He was self-centered, and he was not a good leader. He was not a good leader, because he didn't listen to advice. He didn't listen to the advice of the elders. When they told him how to treat the people, he wanted to treat the people still ill. And because of that, he was not qualified, and he was not fit, honestly, to lead the people or the children of Yisrael. So Jeroboam, it was Rehoboam and Jeroboam, which turned around, and he basically took the 10, and Yahuwah told him that he would baruch him, but he would not keep it for long. Or in other words, it would not be his for forever, but just for a set time. And so the fighting began even in that time, because there were people that were extremely upset with Sahulaman because of the way he had began to teach them and treat them. So you see the dividing of the houses. You see the dividing of Yisrael and Yehuda. And so it's important that we understand that. And so this is what caused the feuding, and that feuding continued on even up to today through the dividing of the houses. And so this is why there was such a major fighting going on with them. And so it's important that we see and that we understand that. Now, once again, they had no dealing because of their teachings, and also because of who was their leader. And so we're going to see even the more through the Samaritans how all of this really begins to blossom and bloom in this time. And so let us look at that. Then the Shamaran woman said to him, "How is it that you, being Yehuda, ask me of drink, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Yehudim have no dealings with the Shamaronites," or the Samaritans, excuse me, y'all. Now, let's look at that. Once again, let us look at that. I love looking at the footnotes. Now, the Ibram people did not like the Samaritans and did not want any dealings with them, because they considered them half-breeds, even Gentiles, as they saw them corrupting worship with paganism added to Torah practice, as do the Christians today. It is also true that even today the Ibram people think that Gentiles are unclean people, since they actually are, while they eat all sorts of unclean creatures. Now, and once again, you can't blame them for this type of behavior. But once again, just because I disagree with a person's lifestyle and I disagree with how they do things does not mean that now I have the right to attack them. Now, once again, it's important to understand I can disagree agreeably and I can tell you, no, that's wrong. But one of the things I believe we as a people tend to do that we should change, and that is we try to force our lifestyle and our way on people that are not covenant people. Now, they were covenant people, but they were mixed. Now, once again, you have to understand all of the mixing did not come from outside. Some of the mixing came with marrying other Israelites. Now, somebody would say, but why would you say that? And how could you say that? Because you have to understand, when Yahuwah went to get them, he was going to get what? The prostituting sheep of Yisrael. Believe it or not, they were not even to marry outside of their tribes, because you have to understand the inheritance belonged to those in the tribes. Now, let me use this as an example. Just say if you got married and you married, just say, somebody by the name of Rockamore. Okay, that's a familiar name. Or you got married to somebody named John. And just say you married them, and there are two sisters, and they're from the same tribe, but these two brothers are from totally different tribes. Well, what ends up happening if you marry in another tribe, you still mix the blood, and then you separate or cause the land to have to be separated. Why? Because when it's all said and done, you have married outside of your tribe. Everything Yahuwah did was to make sure there was a balance and that there would be equality. Mm-hmm. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
So once again, equality and balance. And so when they married outside of that, that basically caused a lot of things to happen. Once again, you have to understand a lot of the writings and a lot of things that we see even today has been tampered with and has been altered. So a lot of people believe, well, it just means anybody can come. Everybody can come. Not so. Not so. Once again, you have to understand he came for who? The prostituting sheep of Yisrael. Now, with that being said, it's important that we understand they changed their ways. Now, let's look at this. I'm trying to see. Find me Jeroboam. I believe it's in if it's not in Kings, it's in Chronicles. Find me that. Where Jeroboam, it shows that he is one of the descendants, and also Rehoboam. Show me, please, right now, because I can't get to it, but I believe it's in Chronicles. Get that for me. And if it's not in Chronicles, it's in Kings. I want to show us, and I don't have everything right here before me, but I want to show you that he was still a part of, Jeroboam was still a part of the tribes. He was still part of the 10 tribes. It was never given to anybody outside of the tribes. Right. Never given. I believe it's in chapter 14. It's either 11, chapter 11. And check that for me, please. But once again, it was never meant to be given outside. And so once again, even marrying outside of your tribe was still wrong, because you were not supposed to marry outside of your tribe. Because if you married outside of your tribe, what ended up happening, once again, there had to be a dividing. And so if our tribe was to have 100 acres of land, and then one of our descendants or one of our children married somebody outside of our tribe to another person, another tribe, what ended up happening is that now that land is almost in a gridlock, because who does it go to? Who does it belong to? So once again, it's important that we understand they married outside, and if you participated in it, you were wrong. Are you hearing me? Yes. So you were wrong for participating, because you knew you were supposed to marry only within inside your tribe. So it's important that we understand that. Now somebody would say, well, what about today? Well, about today, I say stick with your own. Right. Stick with your own. And it is so. You found it for me? Yes. All right. 2 Chronicles chapter 11. Okay. Somebody get that for me. 2 Chronicles chapter 11 verse 18. Yes. All right. Read that for me. Come on over here and read that for me. And we're gonna see where he was, who he was, and let's read. Let's see. Once again.
2 Chronicles chapter 11 verses 18 through 21. Mm-hmm. From the NIV.
Okay.
Rehoboam married Mahalath, who was the daughter of Dawood's son Yerimoth, and of Abihail, the daughter of Jesse's son Eliah. She bore him sons Yeush, Shemariah, and Zehab. Then he married Ma'akah, daughter of Absalom, who bore him Abiyah, Attai, Ziza, and Shelomith. Rehoboam loved Ma'akah, daughter of Absalom, more than any of his other wives and concubines. In all he had 18 wives and 60 concubines, 28 sons and 60 daughters. And it is so.
And it is so. And it is so. All right. Also, I want you to find me in 2 Chronicles where the kingdom split. Find that for me. I believe it's in 2 Chronicles. Find that for me. Yes, from a tablet, please. Where it shows when Yahuwah told the prophet Athaliah, that he would be that he would have. I need this plugged up. Excuse me. That he would be, that he would have the 10 tribes, but he was still part of the tribes. He was not outside of the 12 tribes. So he was still part of the tribes. Once again, it's important that we understand that everything still revolved around the tribes, right. Never outside. And if it was outside of the tribes, that's when, once again, major troubles came in. And it is so. You have it for me? Okay. 2 Chronicles, I believe it's in I know it's either in chapter 14, I believe it is. Look in chapter 14. The split. When the split took place. And it might be in chapter 11 of if it's not try 1 Chronicles, where it talks about the split. That's what I want to get, the split. Where where Athaliah, the prophet, spoke of, but it tells you what tribe Jeroboam was from. So that we can see that it stayed and remained within the tribes. Nothing ever went outside of that. But, once again, you never marry outside. Right. And even when it was with the daughters of, I don't want to say Zilpath, what is his name? Zilpath, that's right. I keep thinking about Zipporah. Zilpath. When he had the daughters. When they went to Moshe and said, look, our Abba died, but he died because of his own foolishness and because of his own sin. He died because he was gathering wood on the Sabbath to kindle fire when he wasn't supposed to be working. And so one of the things that's important for us to understand is that when it came down to dividing the land, one of the prerequisites for them being able to inherit their land was that they had to marry a cousin. They had to marry within their own tribe, right, so that the land would not be divided and it would not put them gridlock, because one, here you have two people that are different tribe backgrounds, and now that land would be just so disrupted, because one, who would get the land? Right. Now you're separating and you're creating other things outside of what was supposed to be created. Now I know a lot of time people don't think that that's important, but it is very important to Abba Yahuwah. Right. You happy for me? And it is so. Tell me where it is.
2 Chronicles 12 and 5.
Okay, let's see.
Then came Shemaiah the prophet to Rehoboam and to the princes of Yehudah that were gathered together to Jerusalem because of Shishak, and said unto them, Thus saith Yahuwah, he hath forsaken me, and therefore have I also left you in the hand of Shishak.
Okay, once again, we're looking at that's prophecy taking place. Let me see. All right. Now, once again, they are from the tribes. We must remember, we do not marry outside of our tribes. We do not marry outside of our people. When you do, that's what caused a lot of problems. Now, once again, people will say, well, you are racist. No, I'm not a racist. I'm a realist. Mm-hmm. And when you have to understand, it is about our inheritance. It is about us as a people being set apart and separate. Mm-hmm. When you start mixing and marrying, that's when division and stuff gets all mixed up. That's when stuff begins now. Whose is it? Well, how is it ours? Now it becomes our children, which become now a whole nother basically nation. And that's just my belief on it. So once again, it's important that we understand it was not given to them to marry outside of truth, or to marry anybody outside of their tribe. So once again, we're looking at what has taken place and looking at the bickering and the fighting that took place between them. Once again, this was something that was not new and is still not new now. This is why you still have the tribe of or the house of Yehuda and the house of Yisrael still bickering and fussing, because this has been something that we inherited. But because of Yahusha has come and he has basically caused us to be one new man in him. When we accept his offering and his sacrifice, we become one new man in him. Now, once again, and I'm going to, that's going to, I need that. Yeah. All right. Yes. Thank you. All right. Stick with us. Don't quit us, as we're still getting getting this down. Let me turn it down. Once again, it's important that we understand, don't mix the seed. Do not mix. Do not mix. Do not mix. Once again, we're talking about the timeline of Yahusha, and we're looking at how he went into Samaria, and he began to minister to the lost sheep of Yisrael. And it is so.
And it is so.
Now, once again, now Yahusha was giving it away that he is the Mashiach. Now, let's look once again. We read all the way to verse 11. Yeah, but we still at 9. And he says, ask drink of me, and which am a woman of Shamaran or Samaria, for the Yehudim have no dealing Samaritans or the Sharomanites generations back, when Jeroboam and Rehoboam were both in charge as leaders. There's confusion there, and so it's important that we understand it was then and it's still now. Right. Now, verse 11 says, Yahusha answered and said to her, if you knew the gift of power, and who it is that said to you, give me to drink, you would have asked of him, and he would have given you living mayim. Now, once again, she didn't know who he was because they had not spoken of him, because they were out of truth. You can't speak of something you know nothing of. If you don't know about it, you can't speak about it. And so she knew not of him. Now, but she knew of a prophet, and we're going to see that in a minute. Yahusha here is giving away that he is the Mashiach, according to Yahusha 12:3. The Samaritan woman, who was, according to this, a prophetess, was interested to know the truth. She was not an immoral woman as wrongly taught by many. Now, once again, that's important to know too. Why? Because you have to understand, he was going after the prostituting sheep of Yisrael. Now, once again, what is a prostitute? A prostitute is one who gives her or himself away. You have men that are out there, but I think they're more known as gigolos, not prostitutes. But these were prostitutes. He put them in the position to say that they were prostituting sheep. And so we know what prostitutes are. And as I thought about that thing, even on the other week, I thought about there are different levels of prostitution. It's prostitution. But there are levels of prostitution. There are those that are up in the high echelon that are called call girls. Then from those that you look at as being call girls, you see those that are the blue collar prostitutes. What do I mean by that? You got to have a certain amount of money in order for them to even give you the time of day. Right. Then you have those that are the ones that are between those that are call girls and those that have the high priority, which is still all wrong. But you have those that say, look, if he got money, that's fine with me. And so, And so it's those also that say, if, it doesn't matter. If it's a paycheck, he can walk, talk, bark. I don't care. Long as I get my needs met and I'm able to pay these bills. So you got to understand there were different levels of prostitution that was taking place. And so here it is. She's a prostitute because she's given herself away to a foreign way of life. What she had been taught to believe was truth. She could only go by what she had been taught. This is why we learn from family, and we've been in family, especially for folk that have been in family ministries for years. You may not like what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it. And I don't say it to be mean, but it's the truth. Sometimes we follow family members just because they're family, not because we know exactly what they are saying is real and valid or truth. We follow it. Why? Because that's what we were told to do. Well, this is family, and family what? Blood is always thicker than what? Water. So we've always been told that, you got to follow family and you always got to be with family. And I have nothing against being with family because, all of us have some awesome family members, and then some of us have those that are not so awesome. And that's just being real. But then we have those that we esteem and we regard with the highest of esteem. And sometimes the stuff that we learn is not always truth. It does not always line up with truth. And so once again, until we find our experience like the woman at the well did, the Samaritan woman, we will not really be able to fully understand and follow in after Yahusha, especially if we've been taught wrong. Right. Once again, there comes a time that tie and that soul tie and that love affair that you have with family, sometimes you have to cut it loose. Right. And I didn't say break, I said cut it loose. Because when you break stuff, you don't know what how the break is going to be, if it's going to be raggedy, if it's going to be detrimental, you don't know. But when you cut something loose, you know exactly it's going to be a clean cut. And you can walk away knowing without a shadow of a doubt that you did that which was right. And that you did it with the ruach of integrity. But once again, here it is. She was walking in what she was taught until she met Yahusha by the well. So once again, let us look at this again here. She was not an immoral woman as wrongly taught by many. The assembly or today's Christian church also stands in the position of a prophetess identifying itself physically and spiritually with Ephraim with mixed pagan Gentile worship. Once again, it's important that we understand. A lot of people want to say that they are the chosen, but truly in order to be the chosen, you have to have a set apart life. Right. You have to live a set apart life. Once again, a lot of time people don't like hearing that because in their mind, set apart basically says, well, you think you're better. No, I don't think I'm better. I know that he set me apart. And because he set me apart, I have to live set apart. Mm-hmm. And that's just the bottom line. You can't do what everybody else does. And so her upbringing and her teaching is what made her do what she was doing. Not because basically she was just a grimy woman. Now, once again, they were outside of truth because they were living like Gentiles in the sense they were living like other nations, idol worship and all that stuff. You hear me? Now, the woman said to him, Master, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From where then have you that living mayim? Now, this is where she begins to become curious because she's like, well, you're not going to use mine. So where is yours? Because remember, they have beef with each other. They have major issues with one another. And so it's like, no, maybe I'll consider it, but you have to use your own. And she said, where are you going to get this from? Considering that this well is very deep. And she asked the question in verse 12, are you greater than our Abba Yaakov, which gave us the well and drank thereof, himself and his children and his cattle? Now, let's look at what Yahusha says to her, and then we're going to go back. Yahusha answered and said to her, whoever drinks of this mayim shall thirst again. Now, once again, he's making it clear to her that you cannot look at this from a natural point of view. You have to look at this from a different perspective. Right. Now, let's look at the Abba Yaakov. As can be seen, the woman identified with Yaakov as a forefather of her belief. Many in the church do the same and know this truth, but never really think of the connection. They know something about the roots possibly being connected to the patriarchs and matriarchs of Yisrael, but the knowledge that they have is only rudimentary. And so it's important that we understand, once again, the majority of the people that are in Christianity are those that are the chosen and the set apart people. Right. It is just, once again, because of generations of teaching, erroneous teaching, it just was passed on and we walked in it. When I was a Christian, I walked in it and I walked in it boldly. And that's why I'm standing in truth boldly. Mm-hmm. Because when you know a thing and when you have truly have had a personal interaction with him, when you have interacted with him, and when you have truly opened up your eyes and began to truly look in the writings, the set apart writings, and allow your heart to truly open up and understand and then accept what is being given to you, then you could truly say without a shadow of a doubt, no, this is true. And so once again, you have to understand, I put it in this way. A lot of people that have followed in Christianity and still following it and love it and are not ready to get rid of it, they only think that that's the only thing and that's the only way because that's the only thing they've ever been taught. Now, with that being said, at one time I could identify with that. Because when you're in a situation and you're saying, I want to get out of this, I need help, I want to get out of what I've been in, I'm tired of the troubles, I'm tired of the struggles. We all have sung that song. I'm tired of all, the BS. I'm tired of all of this and all of that. And I'm ready for a change. I'm ready to move forward. And we start looking for something, anything that can get us out of that situation. Well, in order to really get out of that situation, you're going to have to repent, and then you're going to have to let go of the very thing that keeps you in the very things and the things that Abba Yahuwah has said for us not to do and for us not to indulge in. Before I knew truth, I thought that was truth. And once again, it's time for reality check. Ask yourself, what changed when you became a Christian? What remained the same? Did anything change? Did anything come about good? Has there been a true deliverance? Has there been truly that you could say has changed your life? And I'm talking about unequivocally, that you could say, no, I've walked in this and I have experienced change, and those with me, every last person with me has experienced change. If we cannot say that, and say that with boldness and confidently say it and say it truthfully, then we know you have not. That's right. And according to Deuteronomy chapter 28, those cause of those that continue to walk contrary to his truth and to his ways. And especially when as we continue to move forward. Once again, it's important that we understand. I also want to say, once again, the connection may be a little poor. So if it is, please, once again, if we get cut off, stick with us, don't quit us, because we're still right here till it's over with. Sorry. And once again, it's important that we understand that we are the true people. It's important to understand that. It is nothing that he's asked us to do that is so far-fetched. The reason it's far-fetched to us is because we were taught it was far-fetched. We were taught that it was wrong. We were taught that we are not the chosen people. But it's amazing when you look at your life and you look back over. The only thing that the history books taught us and people taught us is that we were slaves. Never told us how we got in the situation we got in. Right. Never told us that the reason why we were slaves and under the curse and under everybody's thumb is because of Deuteronomy chapter 28. Because of the disobedience of our ancestors and forefathers. Because they disobeyed Abba Yahuwah, and their disobedience was passed down to us. And because of the scattering to the four extremities, now we find ourselves picking up the lifestyle of those that he told us not to pick up. But yet... And so since our ancestors and forefathers did it in our land and in our country, guess what he said? I'm going to put you in a place where you have no other choice but to live that way, and you're going to suffer the consequences. That's why we end up suffering the consequences behind it. So once again, it's important that we understand, my beloved, the beloved of Yahuwah, you are his chosen. Right. Now, I'm not saying that every melanated person is. I am saying to the heart that hears his voice. He said, my sheep know my voice, and a stranger they will not follow. You have to understand, he didn't come for us to be sick. He came that we might have life, and that more abundantly. And so it's important that we understand that. Now, looking at her life, let's look at verse 13. Yahusha answered and said to her, whosoever drinks of this man shall thirst again. He's telling her, you're going to thirst again. In other words, the undisclosed messages, that's why you're here now, because you're thirsty again. All right. Verse 14. But whoever drinks of the mayam that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the mayam that I shall give him shall be in him a well of mayam springing up into everlasting life. Now, once again, he's appealing to her soul, because once again, you have to remember, she's been taught this teaching and the doctrine that she was walking in all her life. That's all she knew. And once again, because some of us, that's all we've ever known was Christianity. That's all we walked in. And then some of us got to the point that we got tired of it and we walked away from it because it was not giving us what we expected of it and what we wanted from it.
That's right.
If it was, we would still be walking in it. But we're not. Once again, it's important to understand that we need to walk in his truth. And so as it is being presented to us, let us be open and let us be mindful, once again, that he loves us. Love us, he would not have given his son in the place that we could not ever have walked in. Because if so, we would not be here today.
That's right.
All right. Now, once again, let's look at verse 50. My power. The woman said to him, Master, give me this mayim that I thirst not, neither come here to draw. Now, in that, you have to see what's being said. That I thirst not, neither come here to draw. That means she was getting tired. I can also say that when you get to a point that you do stuff consistently and you're saying when somebody offers you something else and you're saying, give it to me, that means you have reached a point in your life that you are tired of the same old thing and that you are ready for a change and you are looking for that change. Well, I'm here to present to you that change, and that change is walking in the truth that was hidden from us and taken from us years and years ago. Right. And that is to live according to his instructions. Let me tell you something. His Torah is not grievous. The only reason why it becomes grievous is because we're trying to take the Baruch Torah and we're trying to match it and fit it into Christianity. You have to understand Christianity was a system and it still is a system and it needed a figurehead. And that figurehead became Jesus Christ, which we also know is the face and the structure of Caesar Borgia. Right. That's what it is. And all you have to do is do your research and you will see that this is who he is. And we cannot try to make still use the name or the term, well, Jesus Christ is still, he's black, and so that makes him right. No, that does not, because what you're doing is just coloring up Caesar Borgia. You're just making him a black man. That's right. Because he is not Yahusha. He's not the Mashiach, and he's not the son of Yahuwah. The son of Yahuwah is Yahusha.
That's right.
And so it's important that we understand that. Once again, I know a lot of times people think, oh, that's blasphemous. No, what's blasphemous is when you try to make Yahusha Jesus.
That's right.
And the J is only 500 years old. That's what's blasphemous. So once again, we're looking at this conversation between him and the woman at the well. She was getting tired of coming to that well. Yahusha said to her, go call your husband and come here. Now, this is what is really interesting. He said, go call your husband and tell him to come here. And he was saying to her, it says Yahusha was not calling her real husband. The language he spoke, the woman grasped perfectly. After he mentioned to her about the living waters. But she was still confused in her flesh while Yahusha was in the Ruach. Many find the term born again confusing when the term really means regenerated of the Ruach. This can only happen when Yahuwah does it through his word, the seed. So there needs to be a revelation which is missing in many Christians' lives. It says, no wonder they run from one miracle to the next with what can term miracle chasers. Understand what he is saying to her and that what he is alluding to. You all know, just like I've known, when we were in Christianity, we had that mentality. You know, I got to go get my anointing. I got to go get my fix. I got to go. We were like junkies because every time there was a revival, we were right at the door and we revived and nothing still came alive. Right. Because the only way you're going to be revived in the truth is that you begin to follow in the only truth, and that is in the truth of Abba Yahuwah in his Torah. That's right. Which is his instructions. Once again, you have to understand Christianity did a major job on on changing it into the word law. And so it's important that we understand these are the instructions of Abba Yahuwah for us, his people. Once again, we know, and anybody that was in Christianity and you've gotten out of Christianity, ask yourself, for real, why did you leave Christianity? Right. Why did you, what we would consider when we were back in Christianity, backslide? Why did you walk away? You walked away because there was no fulfillment. There was no change. Everything outside may have looked like it changed, but there was no real change in here.
Right.
So what was the point? Why go every time the doors open and you still have not experienced a regeneration or true resurrection in your heart and in your mind?
That's right.
Because you realize there's nothing to this. I'm doing this and I feel emptier. Every time I go, I feel like I'm empty. Because you know that was not the way. And many of us may not want to admit it, but you know I'm telling the truth. There was nothing in it. It was empty. And so therefore you walked away from it. Because you looked and said, if it's going to be this, then what's the point of holding on to something that can't hold me back?
That's right.
To something that can't answer what is true sin. To something that can't tell me who am I when I look in the mirror and see my beautiful chocolate face and say, who am I? And really, where did I originate from?
Right.
That's a problem. Because now that question will resonate and it'll continue to cause you to be discomforted because you're trying to understand, who am I? And Christianity can't tell you. You know why? Because even though we continually refuted that he was European, that's all we could ever see in our heads and minds was this cream colored or this white. We know they're not white, but this European, blue-eyed, straight-nosed, blonde-haired, what they call the Christ. And we can't identify with that. Wide nose, brown colored skin. We can't identify with that, never could. And so therefore many of us walked away because we look and saying, how can I identify with that and identify with him? And he looks just like the oppressor. He looked like just the one that kept my great-great-grandmother, my great-great-grandpa in slavery. How can I worship him? How can I embrace him? And then they sold us the lie. Well, he ain't that color, but you still got to keep his name. Still, what's the difference? There is none.
Right. That's right.
I'm just here to put something on your heart and mind. Because you know it's the truth. And it is so.
It is so.
Now, once again, we don't want to be miracle chasers. We want to walk in his truth.
That's right.
And we want to embrace it and it embrace us back. And she said to him, I have no husband. Yahusha said to her, you have well said, I have no husband. Because she didn't have one. For you have had 5 husbands, and he whom you now have is not your husband. Now that's something to tell somebody. That when you get to a point where you really get tired, you say, nope, I have no husband. He said, you answer truthfully. Because why try to make something that's not there? You can't. You can't. And for a lot of women that have gone and have struggled and tried to make marriages work, and you have fought and you have fought and you have fought, sometimes you just got to be still. You have to be still and know if he's going to make it work. And if he doesn't, you will not get blamed if he walks away. It's the truth. You will not get blamed. Because you have to understand, if he's not happy dwelling with you and you're not happy dwelling with him, one thing for sure, you better make sure you be still and make sure you don't make the wrong move.
Right.
But one thing is for sure, if it doesn't work and they walk away from you, you do not have to run behind anybody to make it work.
That's right. That's right.
And I believe that she was one of those that realized this ain't it. This is not it. And that's why she told him the truth. No, it's a man maybe there, but that's not my husband. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
All right. Now, and she said, for you have had 5 husbands. He whom you have now is not your husband, and that you spoke truly. She spoke the truth. The woman said to him, Master, I perceive that you are a prophet, because you have to understand he was a prophet. One of the things that we were taught to believe that he was not, but he was a prophet. He came in the stand as Moshiach, who was the prophet and the leader of Yisrael, just like Yahusha is. So once again, she was not off when she saw that. But let's look at what else goes on. And it says in verse 20, our Abba's worship in this mountain. And you say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Now you have to understand why that really kind of was a sensitive place for her. Because remember, it was Jeroboam, Jeroboam that told him, said, look, we're going to leave. Because it's too far. And so because it's too far, we're going to go to Mount Gerizim. And that's where we're going to worship.
Right.
We're going to go to Mount Gerizim. Because in Mount Gerizim is where we're going to say that everything took place. Because we're not welcome at in Jerusalem at Moriah, Mount Moriah. So we are going to just stay away, because that's what they began to say where Abraham went to sacrifice Isaac. That's where they began to say also that he sacrificed Ishmael. He never sacrificed them, but he took Isaac there, but Ishmael was not there. That's once again one of the lies that was put in there. Ishmael was not with him when he took Isaac to go and offer him up. He was not there. Once again, it's important that we understand, because by that time, Ishmael would have been a young man, probably around the age of, probably in his early 20s. And so you have to understand there was a lot of things that were going on that we were blinded to. Ishmael, according to the prophecy that was given over his life, when Hagar left and Yahuwah spoke to her, he told her that his hand would be against all men and that their hands would be against him, and he would be a wild man, and that basically he would live in the wilderness. And so you have to understand, with that kind of prophecy on your life, there's no way you're going to get up to be a young man and be able to deal with everybody. And so when it was Isaac was about 3, maybe 4 after he was weaned from his Emma, that Sarah saw Ishmael, and he had in his hand, or had the motion like he had a bow and arrow in his hand, as though if he had it, he would have killed him. So you have to understand that we began to see that his hand was against all men. And so even against his baby brother. And so she said, put him out. They got to go. He will not share the inheritance with my son. So it was at that point that he was dismissed, and permanently. So there's no way he could have been with Abraham getting ready to go to sacrifice Isaac unto Abba Yahuwah. So once again, it's important that we understand certain things that we really need to pay attention to. But once again, it was because of that also that they did not go to Jerusalem, because they were not accepted, because of all the things that they had been doing and those things that had been pronounced about them. Once again, they were worshiping idols, and they were worshiping in the wrong place. Now, someone would probably ask the question, well, if we're worshiping in the wrong place, wouldn't that be the same? Absolutely not. Because unless you are worshiping in the wrong place and worshiping the wrong one, then yes, you are out of line and out of order. But if you are worshiping the right one, Yahuwah, and we're giving Yahuwah Todah for Yahusha, then you're absolutely correct. But if you are doing it in any other form or fashion, then yes, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. Now, we don't have a church. We have a temple. We have a place to where we go and we worship and we learn. Yes, we still give him praise, because there's no instructions about praising him. Yes, we still praise him on the timbrel and on the keyboard and on the drums. We still praise him in song and in worship. Right. We've not stopped that at all. But we know where we're doing it, and we know why we're doing it, and we know how we're supposed to do it.
That's right.
All right. Now we're going to finish reading. Now this is where once again, verse 20, and he said, and this is once again where she says, our Abbas worshipped in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Now, once again, you have to understand her reservation because of what was taking place. Now, what the woman states truthfully that the Judean people Jerusalem, and that is where he must be worshipped, while these Ephraimites had set up a temple in Mount Gerizim, and so they were guilty of displacing the true place of worship and also the true feast. This is similar to Christianity replacing tabernacles with Christmas and Passover and Easter. She now realizes Yahusha could be the Mashiach spoken of. The only one they were expecting. Rome is guilty of setting up new places for worship, with the Vatican in Rome and Lourdes in France. Anglican Christianity is also guilty and aligns itself with Rome by using replacement theology to replace Yisrael with herself and calling herself the new Yisrael. And this is why, once again, may not want to hear it, but this is why the church people call themselves the spiritual Jews. We're not Jews, we're Ibram, because of Roman Catholicism. Anytime you walk in Christianity and you walk as a church, you've adopted the ways of Roman Catholicism. And that's why many of them say that they are the spiritual Jews. Once again, we're not Jews. We are Ibram. And so it's important that we understand where we are to worship. We know that we are, according to Vayikra chapter 26, and I believe it full-heartedly, that we're in the land of our enemies. And so though we're in the land of our enemies, we do worship Abba Yahuwah. We do give him praise, and we do keep the feasts. We keep them according to the set times and the set seasons. That's important. And you can find all that in the scriptures. You can find that in Vayikra chapter 24, where it talks about the set seasons. And so it's important that we understand how we are to regard them and how we are to keep them. Nowhere are we not supposed to take them or keep them. The thing that we have to do is learn how to keep it and not keep it in the wrong way and in the wrong manner or in the wrong season. That's important to know. We do not celebrate Christmas. We do not celebrate Easter. Neither do we celebrate New Year's, because once again, it's off. I heard a brother from Demona say this lie has basically kicked us off of our axles because it's a lie. We do not. January, once again, it is not the first month.
Right. That's right.
And so once again, it's a lie. And so it's important for us to pray as well as research. And so, or research as well as pray, so that we can get the understanding, and so that we can truly come into a greater understanding of the truth for our lives. So once again, it's important that we understand that. Now, once again, these things we see, and as we continue to see, many of these things have been replaced, and not just outwardly, but even in here, in our hearts, it has been misplaced. And so we don't look at it as a lifestyle. We look at it as a religion. It is not a religion. It is our way of life. Right. And the only way we're going to truly develop in it is that we look at it as our way of life and not as a religion. And it is so. And it is so. And it is so. All right. 21. Yahusha said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour comes when you shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Abba. You do not know what ye worship. We know what we worship, for salvation is through the Yehudim." Right. So it's important that as he talked with her, that he was giving her instructions, and he was showing her. Right. All right, now let us look at verse. We're going to look at a footnote in verse 22. The Yehudim and worship. This is the story of most. They do not know what they worship, while the Ibram people can teach them many things about true worship. They need to go more often to the Ibram scriptures or the writings to learn the roots of belief. It's important that we understand the roots of our belief. And so it's important. And then the second one. We cannot escape Yahusha's conclusion that no matter how many big churches are built, salvation is only through the Ibram nation of Yisrael, through her Mashiach. It is not through the creeds and traditions introduced by Protestant Christianity or Catholicism. Did Yahusha ask the thief next to him to recite a creed to be born again? Yet how many in churches will repent of their sin of pushing creeds down people's throats and forgetting about obedience to Torah, which shows our fruit and love for the Mashiach and the nation he is the head of. So once again, it's important that we understand we don't live by creeds in that respect, but we do have times where we do, because you'll hear me, I am a stickler for confessions. Right. I am a stickler for repetition in the scripture or in the writings, but I am a stickler for that. But it's important that we understand that. Once again, if we cut out, please remember it is due to our slightly poor connection where we are on this night. But once again, stick with us, don't quit us. We love you, and we're praying with you and for you. Once again, we are talking about the timeline of Yahusha and the conversation that he has with the woman at the well, and how we are to look in depth at her life, and not just her life, but look at her acceptance, even though she goes in talking with him. Now, you have to understand, she's not debating with him. That's right. She's talking with him. This is a sincere conversation with him, because she's trying to understand. Yes, she says, but here is where that's a question, and that's basically somebody that's really, in my opinion, baffled, because you're thinking, okay, all these years I thought where we were was right, and you're telling me I'm wrong. So it's not a debate, but she is talking to him. The only way you're going to really learn how to develop and grow is you listen, you ask questions.
That's right.
Don't like debating. And I know I've said it, and a Cody, do so. If that's what you feel you have to do, the answer. I believe that we ought to be able to sit and go through the writings. I believe that we ought to be able to look and go through the writings, agree to disagree, and then pray about it and come back and see what we come up with. Because truly, if one of us is wrong and we truly pray and ask the Ruach Kodesh to come in and enlighten us, when we come back again to talk and we are truly plugged in, guess what? That's going to be revealed. And that squashes and puts away all that debating. What debating does, basically, in my opinion, just says who has the most information and who can get their hands on the most information. Because if you don't have as much information as the person you're debating with, you might as well sit down and don't even get on the podium or the platform, because they're going to eat you alive. And it's the truth.
That's right.
It's the truth. Because if you don't have the information they have, then you really are at a disadvantage. You're at a disadvantage. So once again, it's important that we understand that. Now, to go on with her conversation with the Mashiach. Once again, Torah shows us our fruit. All right. Now, let us read. I'm going to get my readers back in. I love reading. All right. We're going to read 23, 24, 25, and 26. And it is so.
Twenty-four, 25, and 26.
Mm-hmm.
It reads from the King James Version. Yahuwah is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. The woman saith unto him, I know that Mashiach come, which is called the Messiah. When he is come, he will tell us all things. Yahusha said unto her, I that speak unto thee am he. To which verse?
27.
Verse 27 reads, And upon this came his disciples, and marveled that he talked with the woman. Yet no man said, What seekest thou? Or why talkest thou with her?
All right. And it is so. Verse 23, but the hour comes and now is when the true worshipers shall worship the Abba and Ruach and in truth. For the Abba seeketh such to worship him. Now understand, he's not doing away with the place of worship. Right. But he is showing her that the true seekers, that those that want to worship him in truth, are going to do so. Now once again, let us not read what's not there. Nowhere did he ever say that he was dismissing or that he was removing the place of worship. Okay. Verse 24, power is Ruach, and they that worship him must worship him in Ruach and in truth. In other words, in the Torah, because that is his truth. You cannot do it outside of that. You cannot do it in any other way, or you're going to be outside. And that's just it. There is no, there is nothing else that can honestly be added or taken away from that. The woman said to him, I know that Mashiach is coming, which is called Mashiach. When he is come, he will tell us all things. Now you have to understand, she's still listening because she's still trying to figure out. Now he's telling her and he's giving her this information, but you have to understand, she's still a babe into this. Right. Because she's still trying to figure out, certain things. Now, the things that she has come aware of, she's accepting them. You don't see her rebuttaling it. You don't see her fighting him and coming back with 50 billion questions. Right. But you see her saying, okay, when he comes, because understand, she only is seeing him as a prophet at this time. But you're going to see how her perception of him changes by the depths of the conversation. You're going to see how he reveals himself to her and her heart opens up to see who he really is. Okay. Yes. Now, verse 26 says, Yahusha said to her, I that speak to you am he. And upon this came his disciples and marveled that he talked with the woman. Yet no man said, what do you seek? Or why do you talk with her? Because remember, they had a major issue with her. But they were afraid to open their mouths because you have to understand, anytime, if you ever walked up on a person or people that are engaged in conversation and they stop and look at you, it's not a one-sided conversation when they both look at you. You know that this was an in-depth conversation. Why? Because both of them look at you like, okay, you're here and okay. And so this is something they saw. And I believe that they not only saw it, but they felt in the atmosphere that this was something that was divine. This is not haphazard, but this was purposed by Abba Yah through his son Yahusha HaMashiach. All right?
Yes.
All right. Verse 27 says, and upon this came his disciples and marveled that he talked with the woman. Yet no one said, what do you seek? Or why do you talk with her? In other words, what you seeking of him, woman, and why are you talking to her? Verse 28, the woman then left her water pot and went her way into the city and said to the men, come see a man which told me all things that I ever did. Is not this the Mashiach? Then they went out of the city and came to him. In the meantime, his disciples urged him, saying, Rabbi, eat. Because remember, they had gone to get some food. Mm-hmm. That was his way, I believe, of dismissing them from what he was getting ready to do. Because they were not ready to handle that just yet. They were not ready to engage in that conversation. So I believe that was his way of dismissing them from that which was getting ready to take place. And so here it is, she leaves and she goes, the first evangelist, and she goes and she begins to share with them. Now watch this. The men had no issue with her coming to them and sharing with them what had just taken place in her life. It's amazing that now, even in the day and time we live in, we have so many people, and especially our own, that fight women and that have a problem with women telling the truth. If you've had an encounter, and if a woman has had an encounter with him before you, and she comes and tells you, you would be a fool to reject it because of her gender. Right. Right. You have to understand, Yahuwah knew who was coming to that well. He knew exactly who was going to be there at that exact time. He knew she was going to be there. And he used her to bring forth that word to get them stirred to come and hear it. Now, once again, the issue comes in is that when we become so inundated and we become so biased that the only thing we can see is gender and can't hear what's coming out of the mouth of the vessel he's using, that's a major problem. Because if they would have rejected her, they would have rejected their lifeline. That's right. But they did not. And so they were able to come through and they were able to experience him in a phenomenal way. And so did she. You cannot and I cannot tell him who he can use and who he can't. That's right. Now, with that being said, let me bring this disclaimer in there. I'm not going to say that he's going to use anybody outside of the 12 tribes. The 12 tribes. That's right. I will never say that. Why? Because you have to understand, everybody he chose and everybody he called was a part of the tribes. He came for the prostituting sheep of Yisrael. And because he came for us, he used us to win us back to him. Did you hear what I said? Yes. He used us to win us, to bring us back to him. Right. That's right. So he's not going to use anybody else. People get all up in the hype and they believe, well, he can use anybody. He used the donkey, which, he used what the scripture says. He used an ass. But at the same time, you have to understand that was a kosher one. Raised. Are you hearing me? Yes. Now, for those of us that know what Balaam had done, Balaam and Balak, he used that one because he chose to. Are you hearing me? Yes. So once again, it's important that we understand what it is that Yahuwah desires to convey to us and desires to get to us as his people. Once again, as we look a little further into this conversation, let's see what's taking place here. But he said to them, I have food to eat that ye know not of. Therefore said the disciples one to another, has any man brought him anything to eat? Yahusha said to them, my food is to do the will of him that sent me and to finish his work. And to finish his work. So that meant there was still work to be done. He did not oppose Abba Yahuwah Neither was he at odds with his Abba.
That's right.
He was there to finish the work. And how can you finish the work except you be in agreement and except you are unified and a God? That's once again what the church has been notorious for, is making us believe that not Yahusha, but they said Jesus came to do away with the law, and he probably did. But Yahusha never did.
That's right.
Those words and the stuff you hear twisted and all messed up, those are not the words of Yahusha. He didn't come to do away with it, and neither did he come to fight his Abba. But he came to be in complete compliance and obedience to what he gave him to do, and to teach us how to do and be the same way. Once again, let us read. Verse 35. Do you not say there are yet 4 months and then comes the harvest? Now he's talking to his disciples. Okay. Therefore, are yet 4 months, and then comes the harvest. Behold, I say to you, lift up your eyes and look on the fields, for they are white, all ready to harvest. Now, once again, you have to understand they were ready for the harvesting. Why? Because they had become ripe because of what had been said. While the disciples are concerned about physical needs of the body, but Yahusha is concerned with the spiritual needs of the people. His allegory is to do with the great harvest, the Feast of Tabernacles, both of the birth of Mashiach and the final ingathering. Once again, it's important that we understand what it is that Yahusha was doing and what he was giving unto us, his people. They were ready. Why? Because after she had gone and told them, they had come running. That seed had been planted, and they were ready because they were ready to listen. They were ready to develop, and they were ready to grow. It's important that we understand, once again, the very things that he has given unto us. As a people, we must understand what is given unto us is to us and for us, not for everybody else. Once again, you have to understand Roman Catholicism is what destroyed many of things. We look at, if you look in history, you look at when Roman Catholicism really began to play a major part and they began to do certain things. One of the things they created was the word Gentile. You have to understand when we say Gentile, there are 2 types of Gentiles. You have Gentile, which is the children of Yisrael. And the reason we are called the Gentiles is because we were the 10 prostituting sheep or 10 tribes of the prostituting sheep of Yisrael. Now, once again, you have to understand Yehuda, which were those that had messed up, but they came back and they repented and they sort of got themselves in line and got themselves straight, still with some things they needed to do. But if you notice, he said, I come not before what? The prostituting sheep of Yisrael. Right. All along when you read in the scriptures or in the writings and you see Yahusha speaking, it is always the class of people, the Yehudim and the children of Yisrael. When you hear those that are the Hellenized folks, those are the ones that began to take on the culture of the people that are there, which would be considered Gentiles. So when you hear in the writings that he's going to use the Gentiles, he is talking about the prostituting sheep of Yisrael. Because you have to remember, we lost our identity and our name. So we became the Gentile people because we had no identity. That's right. And so he's using us to even stir the Yehudim to do what's right. Mm-hmm. So you have to understand, it's not talking about another nation of people. Anytime we begin to try to drive or bring other nations into it, that's where we're going to have problems. Now you have to understand, when he's referring to foreigners and he's referring to strangers, that's when most of the time he is referring to those that are outside of covenant and those people that are different nations. So once again, he is talking about us, the children of Yisrael, provoking our family, the Yehudim, to do right. That's who he's talking about, not other nations. He's talking about us. And once again, you have to understand Roman Catholicism, which teaches universalism, basically says that any and everybody can come. That's not any and everybody. Even when the scripture said, whosoever will, let him come. That's talking about the children of Yisrael. That's not talking about everybody else. And so it's important that we understand that. So once again, it belongs to us and it is for us to do what we need to do. And it is so. All right, we're going to read one more. Okay, we're going to read this and then we're going to get ready to pray. Verse 36, we're going to read 36, 37, 38. And let's read 39. And we're going to go ahead and pray. My readers. I need my readers. 36, 37, 38, 39.
And it is so.
All right. And it is so.
Verse 36. Even now the reaper draws his wages. Even now he harvests the crop for eternal life, so that the sower and the reaper may be glad together.
All right. Now listen. And this is from the Abrahamic covenant writings. And he that reaps receives wages and gathers fruit to life eternal, that both he that sows and he that reaps may rejoice together. Once again, let's look at that. And he that reaps receives wages and gathers fruit to life eternal, that both he that sows and he that reaps may rejoice together. So once again, exactly. And so once again, it's important that we understand that we both get paid. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
In verse 36, that we both get paid. And what I mean by that, you have the sowers and you have the reapers. And so we're in a time now that as we sow and as those are reaping, we still receive the same kind of wages. There's no difference. There's no difference. All right, come on, let's read 37.
Thus the saying, one sows and another reaps, is true. I sent you to reap what you have not worked for. Others have done the hard work, and you have reaped the benefits of their labor. And it is so.
And it is so. All right, let's read verse 39.
Verse 39. Many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. He told me everything I ever did.
Now, once again, let's look at what it says. It is not necessary that the same person who sows would reap also. One sows, and that is teaches scriptures, the way we should walk, and another sees the fruit of it. The process was started by our forefathers and the prophets of Yisrael. The Mashiach followed this through and taught us how we must continue teaching the truths of Torah. These teachings show us how to be obedient to Yahuwah's commandments of Torah and the rest of the readings. So it's important that we understand where we are and what we are doing. This is very important to us in our development and in our growth. One of the things I like to use as just to give as a reference is that nobody wants to just grow and not develop. That's right. If you just grow, there is something wrong. There is something abnormal going on. Because in order to develop, you have to grow. In order to develop, you must grow. And in order to grow, you must develop. If there's a portion of your brain or your brain does not develop, what happens is you become crippled. Right. And this is where we have those that we can say that they are mentally challenged because somewhere they did not grow. And if they did not grow, then there is no room for development. And so this is why we have a lot of people that are handicapped and once again, mentally challenged. And so we want to do both. There has to be a parallel. You have to grow just as well as develop, just like you have to develop in order to grow. Because if a person's brain or their cavity, the head does not grow, then their brain cannot develop and grow. And that means that means that their brain will outgrow the cavity or their head. That means there's going to be some abnormalities. And so we want to do both. We want to grow and to develop so that we can be a people that are mature and that we can turn around and help somebody else mature. Once again, we are reaping where they started. Right. And so it's important that we continue that. And one of the things that I am a stickler for is reading and studying and repetition. Right. In order to develop and really grow, you have to do repetition. Anybody that has children know, in order to get them potty trained, sometimes you have to spank them. Now, some people think, oh, that's abuse. No, it's not, because when you get tired of them diapers, especially when they're 3 and 4 years old, and they start to smell like grown folks. Now, I'm just being real. You start thinking, no, I didn't show you how to get on there. Now, you're going to get on there and use it because you grown enough to wipe your own self. And it's the truth. Right. They learn because now they know, I don't want to get popped. And they start growing and they start developing. And guess what? They start doing what they know is right. Once again, repetition helps us to develop and to grow. Anything you do, you have to do it. Once again, we're not trying to create habits. We're trying to develop so we can walk in our way of life. And it is so.
And it is so.
All right. Let's look at verse 39. Read that for me again.
Many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. He told me everything I ever did.
Now, we're gonna leave with this right here. It's important It's good that you can listen to somebody's testimony and that you can develop and you can have your own desire to hear and to know. But the greatest desire and the greatest thing that we could ever experience is our own testimony by our own personal experience with him. It's good that we can hear somebody say, you know, he's done all this for me and he's revolutionized me. He's waking me up. But the best part of it is you being able to say he woke me up also. That's so important for us as a people, because you can say all day long, oh, wow, you know, we came because he did this and he did that for them. But what has he done for you? Has he truly woke you up to where the Torah, you're not just in the Torah, but the Torah is also in you? That's right. To where you are willing to go against the grain, and it doesn't matter how many people walk away, how many people criticize or talk about you, to say, no, I know truth and I'm going to stand in it and I'm going to live by it. Are you willing to do that? Because if so, that means that you have had an experience with him that can't nobody and no demon and no devil stop you from saying, I've experienced his love, his compassion. I've experienced him. And I don't need actually anybody, excuse me, in this respect, right there saying, you know, he did this, he did that, because I've experienced him for myself. Right. Now, don't get me wrong. Now, you need to have somebody to teach you and to help you develop and grow. But I'm talking about really standing and believing him for what he's doing and what he's done, because you've experienced him yourself. It is about experiencing that undying, unquestionable love and compassion and mercy that, once again, this is ours. And don't let anybody take it away from you. Don't let anybody make you believe that we are not good enough to be his chosen people. Don't let anybody make you feel that we are not it because of the lie that they continually to pump. Yes, we were slaves, but we understand why we were slaves now. Not because somebody just overpowered us, just because they were able to do what they did because we were under a curse. That's right. And now we've accepted his truth and we're walking in that truth. We are no longer under that curse. Are there still challenges? Absolutely. As long as we're here, we're going to face challenges.
That's right.
But we continue to live, and we continue to live in our belief in him. Once again, I want you to know we love you. We're praying with you. We're praying for you. I pray that this has helped you as it has helped me. It always helps me because I love him, and I truly do toda him for waking me up and giving me a voice, his voice. It's not my own voice, but it's his.
That's right.
And I love him more than anything in this world because he really has let me see the light. And so because I see the light and I'm living according to his instructions for my life, he is causing me to develop. And as I continue to develop and as I continue to learn and to grow, I will continue to share with you everything that he shares with me. Once again, I love you. I'm praying with you. I'm praying for you. This is new. This is the first time we've done this. And so I wanted to make it a little personal than before. Trust me, I love teaching. I have no problem with sitting down, right. But I love doing what I do because I'm a mover. I love moving around. But this is just one of those times that I wanted to take to share with you what he had given to me from an intimate, personal, face-to-face time. So once again, I love you. I'm praying with you. I'm praying for you. I want to say to you, stay warm. It is really chilly outside that door. Keep your head covered because that's where all your heat escapes from the top of your head. Keep your head covered. Keep your feet warm. Continue to drink plenty of water, fresh juice, and continue to get your exercise in. You know what tomorrow is, Yom Reviv. Get your exercise in. It is the time that we exercise. It's the time that we walk. May not look like it, but we do. We are getting out there walking. And so it's important that we walk. We trying to shed some of these extra pounds, y'all. So once again, we want to get out there and walk because walking does the body good. Once again, I love you. We're praying for you. We're praying with you. I am Prophetess Sabrina Brown, also Moral 777. And I want you to know we love you. We're praying with you and for you. And I am the leader of Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom, Hebraic Belief Ministries, located in South Carolina. Once again, I love you. I'm praying with you and for you. And I want you to remember here at Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom, Hebraic Belief Ministries, this is the place where the Torah does the body good. Until next time, may Abba Yahuwah Baruch Atah and keep you in his shalom till we meet again. And remember, You've been touched by Champion TV, a place where the champions reside. And it is so.
And it is so.